Battle to free a man who says he was wrongly imprisoned for murder.
Seven Nightly News with Frank Warwick and Kay McGrath.
Good evening. Federal Cabinet remains locked in debate tonight over Australia's immigration intake for the coming year. Cabinet had been expected to resolve the issue today, but will now resume its discussions tonight.
There are conflicting views within Cabinet over the appropriate level of immigration. While the Prime Minister is on the record as saying Australia's annual intake of 140,000 migrants is about right, some senior ministers are now openly questioning the economic benefits of the immigration program and calling for a significant cut in the intake. Tonight, Cabinet is expected to agree to a reduction of between 10 and 15,000 migrants over the next year, a move which at the very least would serve to offset the impact of the Prime Minister's commitment to allow Chinese students to remain in Australia. Overshadowing the immigration debate in Cabinet today, though, discussion on this week's Premier's Conference. Last night, Federal Treasurer Paul Keating said the states could look forward to a real increase in their overall funding. But with that extra money tied to specific purpose grants for areas such as health and education, it's obvious the Premiers still won't be happy.
Well, Mr Keating's comments at face value are about 70 or 80% a con job.
The federal opposition, too, was sceptical, accusing Mr Keating of game playing.
Any, games, political games in the few days leading up to the Premier's Conference will count for naught in what ought to be a national struggle to turn around a decline in living standards.
In Canberra, Laurie Wilson, 7 Nightly News.
A young Aboriginal man jailed for life over the murder of a Mount Isa woman today won a retrial 6 years after his conviction. One of the judges who upheld 29-year-old Kelvin Condren's appeal was critical of Queensland police investigations into the crime.
In 1984, 23-year-old Kelvin Condren was sent to Townsville Stewart Prison for life for the murder of Patricia Carlton. She'd been beaten with an iron bar, sexually interfered with and left to die in a vacant lot in Mount Isa. Condren was convicted despite another man allegedly confessing to Darwin police that he'd committed the murder. Since then, the young Aborigines' legal supporters haven't stopped fighting. In 1987, Tony Fitzgerald led an unsuccessful appeal against Condren's conviction. At that hearing, the court heard fresh evidence that two people had seen Patricia Carlton alive and well in Mount Isa Hotel an hour after Condren had been picked up by police for drunkenness, making it impossible for him to have committed the crime.
Despite new evidence, a petition by Condren's lawyers to have the case reopened was rejected in 1988. But last year, the High Court recommended the case return to the Court of Criminal Appeal.
Today, Condren's second appeal was upheld. Two of the three appeal court judges ordered the conviction be set aside and Condren be tried again. The third, Mr Justice Thomas, said there'd been a miscarriage of justice and called for Condren to be acquitted. He said the case is 6.5 years old. It's better it be terminated here and now without the charade of a further jury trial. Attorney General Dean Wells will now consider the judgment, along with submissions from Condren's lawyers that a new trial should not go ahead. Until then, Kelvin Condren will stay in Townsville Prison. With loved ones by his side today, he vowed not to seek bail, but to walk out a free man.
The decision that I've been looking for all the time.
Kelvin, what do you think about freedom?
It means a lot to a person.
How much?
Everything. Everything in your life.
If Condren is ultimately freed, he may seek compensation for his years in prison. Carol Horn, 7 Nightly News.
British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher and her key cabinet ministers are under tight security after the latest IRA terror bombing in London. The target this time was the Conservative Party's elite Carlton Club. At least 8 people were injured.
St James Street, just off Piccadilly, is packed with fashionable clubs and restaurants. The Carlton Club is just around the corner from Buckingham Palace and the Queen Mother's residence. It's a meeting place for high society. Cabinet treats Mrs Thatcher to a dinner here each year. The target was well chosen. Prominent people entertain here every night. The bomb was planted in the club's entrance and exploded as members were enjoying an evening drink.
All the windows were broken, the curtains and things were hanging out, there was a lot of debris. It was difficult to see because the dust was still rising when we got there.
Those inside were evacuated onto the street as firemen checked the building, uncovering another device. Among the injured were former Conservative Party Chairman Lord Carberry and 3 Americans. A number of well-known Australians are known to visit the club but weren't listed among those hurt. In recent times, the IRA has focused on military targets. This attack in the heart of London's West End marks a return to seeking out those connected with government. It has similarities to the Brighton bombing. Prime Minister Thatcher, who was visiting Ireland at the time, condemned those responsible, while her deputy, Geoffrey Howe, rushed to the scene from a nearby restaurant. Police have little to go on. There were reports of a car with Irish number plates near the club just before the blast. With the spate of recent attacks across Europe, they believe the campaign of violence is set to continue. In London, Steve Barnes, 7 Nightly News.
The Iranian government has denied hampering the flow of foreign aid to earthquake disaster victims. With the death toll now exceeding 50,000 and 500,000 people homeless, Iran has little choice but to open its doors to the outside world.
24 hours a day, dog teams are still searching for survivors. No one, least of all these French volunteers, pretend there is anything more than a slim chance of success. They weren't initially welcome. Muslims who believe dogs are unclean objected to their presence. Now, after some negotiation, they can work. There are complaints about lack of coordination on the ground, which are perhaps unsurprising given the scale of the tragedy. Iran's own capacity shouldn't be underestimated. After 8 years of war with Iraq, the army is well used to moving men and material, and there are civilian experts as well. But after so much death, the grief in Gilan and Zanjan provinces runs very deep. Relief workers are having to seek out survivors who are too shocked to look for treatment, which is why foreign volunteers who've been held up at Tehran airport, like these Czech doctors who brought a field hospital with them, are infuriated by any delay.
Canberra is threatening to cut some states out of special funds to wipe out highway black spots unless they agree to a national road safety package. Land Transport Minister Bob Brown has given the state and territory governments until Saturday to accept the package or miss out on their share of $120 million.
Bob Brown was in a threatening mood today. His ultimatum to the states and territories: agree to 10 national road safety rules by Saturday or lose a share of $120 million in road funding.
Crunch time is here. They can participate in the package or not. If they choose not to, well, then we will cancel the package for those states which do not participate.
The offer of extra money was made back in December, but with the deadline 4 days away, Victoria, Western Australia, Queensland and the Northern Territory are holding out. The federal government wants to ban young provisional licence holders from carrying passengers under the age of 21, with certain exemptions, but the 4 aren't keen. Armed with statistics that show the 17 to 25 age group, just 15% of the population, account for 35% of road deaths, Bob Brown went on the attack.
When young people collect themselves in motor cars, they are encouraged by those circumstances to engage in dangerous behaviour.
Bob Brown says if the dissenting governments don't come around by Saturday, not only will they lose their money, but he'll launch an embarrassing media campaign against them as well. In Canberra, Fiona Pye for 7 Nightly News.
And coming up after the break tonight, Sunshine Coast residents fight plans for a huge new theme park.
And Greenpeace takes action against a heavy metal polluter.
A vaccine against cancer.
Sounds like science fiction, but it's real.
A major medical breakthrough on Beyond 2000 tonight on 7.
A week in the life of the Courier Mail is Dr. James Wright. Home and garden, food for thought, entertainment, and health and fitness. The Courier Mail. The week gets stronger.
cup of...
Yes, please. If you're after a fantastic value family home with space everywhere you look, AV Jennings Galaxy 6 Series will have you walking on air. From our biggest star Orion with 4 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms and 5 living areas to the light, bright 3-bedroom Nova, every Galaxy home is designed to space your family out. Yet prices start at an incredible $51,000. Better fly. AV Jennings Galaxy 6 Series is a strictly limited offer. For more details, see Saturday's paper.
G'day. You know, Australian bush tucker isn't easy. You can spend all day scratching around for half a meal. And that's why I travel with a bit of traditional Australian tucker in the fridge, and you can't get better than Coon. Coon's got that tried and true U-Butte flavour that's been... hang on. Now, off you go. That Australian families have loved for over 50 years.
Coon, Australia's favourite tasty.
Too right.
Tomorrow's living section in the Courier Mail is food for thought. Every Wednesday, discover some special places to shop, the joys of dining out, and recipes for dining in. The Courier Mail. The week gets stronger.
Back now with 7 Nightly News. Action by Greenpeace today forced a South Australian lead smelter to promise it'd stop polluting the sea with heavy metals.
An hour before sunrise, inflatable boats crewed with Greenpeace volunteers left the mothership Red Bill for the mangrove creeks behind Port Pirie's lead smelting plant. First Creek channels industrial effluent into the fish spawning grounds of Spencer Gulf, and Greenpeace is determined to stop the flow. Today's exercise was largely symbolic, building a crude weir across the channel, but they hope the state government will follow up with tough marine pollution regulations. It's been called the worst case of avoidable marine pollution in the country. Every year, 300 tonnes of heavy metals, lead, zinc and cadmium, are discharged from this plant into Spencer Gulf with the full knowledge and approval of the state government.
The government has acquiesced and put up with anything the company seems to serve up to them, never with the guts to take them on, never with the guts to pass legislation necessary to force companies like this to do the right thing by the environment.
Company officials and 2 police patrols watched but took no action to stop the protest. Greenpeace wanted more information about the promised clean-up.
It is completely inappropriate for me to give information to Greenpeace before I've even had the opportunity to discuss it with the government.
Does this sort of thing embarrass you?
It doesn't embarrass me in the slightest. I think it's quite foolish.
Pasminco has an appointment with Premier Bannon next month, and state parliament's expected to take another look at marine pollution legislation later this year. At Port Pirie, Chris Warren, 7 Nightly News.
In Washington, an obvious difference of opinion has clouded a visit to the White House by anti-apartheid campaigner Nelson Mandela. President George Bush agreed to maintain economic sanctions on South Africa's government, but he denounced the use of violence that's accompanied the African National Congress's fight for freedom. Mandela said President Bush had been misinformed about the extent of black violence. He said it would only be used as a last alternative. And leading Chinese dissident Feng Li-zhe has been allowed to leave his country 1 year after he took refuge in the US Embassy in Beijing. The 54-year-old astrophysicist and his wife were flown to England in a joint US-British mission. They'd been living in fear of arrest since going into hiding during the bloody Tiananmen uprising.
The fantasy of floating in space could become a reality for 1 million visitors a year if an ambitious plan to build a space theme park at Perigian Beach south of Noosa takes off. But nearby residents have a more down-to-earth view. They want the land left untouched.
The high-flying plan is to turn 43 hectares of swampland into Space World, a multi-million-dollar theme park to rival SeaWorld and Dreamworld. The centrepiece is planned to be a life-size model of the space shuttle. Visitors will be able to feel what it's like to float in space. There'll be a space camp and amusement rides to simulate re-entry and splashdown. The park will be the focal point of a 170-hectare development, incorporating housing, resorts, shops and a high-tech park. Developers TM Burke say they've chosen the quiet seaside site because it's of no substantial environmental importance and the economic benefits of 1 million visitors a year will be significant. But opponents say it'll be totally out of place.
I say they could attract their 1 million visitors a year if they put it further west in the way the Dreamworld is further west, away from the Gold Coast. They can have their 1 million visitors a year and still leave this residential area intact.
Local resident Heather Melrose says the swamp's an important link in a green belt that stretches right along the coast
and it's home to hundreds of plants and animals, including the rare ground parrot. She wants the state government to resume the land and declare it National Park. Linda Scott on the Sunshine Coast, 7 Nightly News.
Sport time now. Here's Peter.
Evening, Frank. Hello, everyone. After the break, a big day for a budding bullet, and good and bad news for Australia as the Wimbledon tennis gets underway.
Alf's few light tinnies might stop him dead.
You know, I never thought I'd get done for drunken driving.
And a hen-pecked housewife in Home and Away tonight.
Do you know Mozart's concerto?
No.
Tchaikovsky's concerto?
No. Do you know Weston's concerto?
No.
Well, a Weston's concerto begins with the smoothest chalk coating. And is followed by a delicious chocolate biscuit base and finishes with a crescendo of the softest chocolate cream.
New Weston's concerto, the cream of chocolate creams.
Can I help you?
Yes, I'm after a great deal on a new Holden.
Yeah.
What about blue? Red? Maybe something bigger. Not that big. I like that. In yellow? Something a little more sporty? Of course, I do most of my driving in the city.
So, you want a great deal on sporty red, blue, silver, yellow, green, small, medium, big wagon?
Yeah, I love it.
Holden's mid-year stock clearance sale. Last days.
Come back to our place for a bite and a warm-up? Oh, shall we get some takeaway?
Mum, can I cook dinner?
Need a hand, girls?
No, we're fine, thanks, Mum.
Amy, this is delicious. What's it called?
Frittata.
I don't know how you do it.
Legos. That's how you do it.
Legos Authentico. I don't know how you do it.
Master Jonathan is home, madam. He has some friends with him.
Oh, dear.
Shall I lay out the crystal?
At once, James.
There is an elegant way to keep your home fresh.
To the manor!
Crystal Air from Arizona.
Ready, James?
Ready, madam.
The solution to household odors is crystal clear.
A desperate race to save a young girl from the streets.
He's 15 years old, made a kid.
It's every parent's nightmare come true. A country practice, 7:30 tonight.
On Hinge tonight, this paint is advertised as the ultimate defence against police speed traps. It's supposed to make your car invisible to radar. We put it to the test.
Pat Cash's Wimbledon hopes have been rocked by yet another injury. The former champ suffered a groin strain as he struggled over 5 sets to beat a little-known Soviet player in the opening round. Cash was one of 6 Australians to win today, among them Wally Masur and Hannah Mandlikova. Yannick Noah became the first seeded player to bow out of the event, but he wasn't the only one to find the going tougher than expected.
Defending champion Boris Becker was also in for a rude shock from 18-year-old Louis Herrera.
Oh, that's a wonderful shot. That's a wonderful shot.
Becker needed all his brilliance at the net to overcome the Mexican, who is ranked 199 in the world.
That's a wonderful rally, a marvellous rally.
He was far from happy with the surface, which was somewhat slippery in the overcast conditions. Becker was forced to tie breaks in the first 2 sets and wrapped up the third 7-5 to set up a second-round clash with Australia's Wally Masur, who was a straight sets winner over Andrei Cherkasov. On outside courts, Pat Cash won in 5 sets, while Darren Cahill, Hannah Mandlikova and Joanne Fall were also victorious.
Well, to be perfectly honest, it was only very early in the first set when I hurt my leg, and I found it very hard running.
In the final centre court match, some last-minute homework paid off for Mark Woodford, who was leading John Fitzgerald 2 sets to love when bad light and slippery conditions halted play. It was a great first day for the Australians. When Steffi Graf begins her title defence on the centre court, she'll be hoping for similar good fortune. John Alexander at Wimbledon for 7 Nightly News.
The streets of Rome have been swamped by hysterical soccer fans after the Italian side powered into the World Cup quarter-finals. Yet to concede a goal, Italy scored a 2-0 win over Uruguay, setting up a meeting with Ireland, who did it the hard way in a dramatic penalty shootout against Romania.
Written off by the purists before the competition began, Ireland's commitment to winning has surprised many, including Romania today. But not coach Jack Charlton. His team may not be beautiful to watch, but they get the job done. Romania also had trouble putting the ball in the net, and the game was deadlocked even after extra time. It was down to a penalty shootout, and at 4-4, Irish goalkeeper Pat Bonner, with all the help he could muster, became a national hero.
And Bonner saved it to Irish delight.
It was then up to substitute David O'Leary to seal the game for Ireland. Capped 52 times, but having never scored a goal, he made no mistake.
O'Leary has done it! And Ireland, their adventure goes on. Their first World Cup, and they're in the quarter-finals.
In Rome, the home side started strongly against Uruguay, Scalacci always eager to put it away. While the fans perfected their Mexican wave, Italy gradually got on top. Scalacci makes it 1-0 to the delight of all Italy. The game was put beyond Uruguay's grasp 7 minutes from full time, when Serena made it 2-0, putting Italy into the quarter-finals against Ireland. Lloyd Jones, 7 Nightly News.
Thousands of league fans have already descended on the New South Wales country town of Parkes for tomorrow's test between Australia and France. And the players were swamped by children who'd travelled hundreds of kilometres to take part in coaching clinics. Even the most hardened test veterans were overwhelmed by the reception.
The people of Parkes turned out today as the Australian and French teams were paraded through the main street. It's clearly the biggest thing to happen to this western New South Wales wheat town in many a long year.
They don't get a chance to see the players in the flesh like this. It's fantastic.
It's unreal, as you can see from the response here today.
Last night, 500 people gathered at a civic reception for the teams. The most excited man in the room was late arrival Mark Carroll.
So elated now, so shed a tear or two, but that's all part of it, mate.
This morning, ground staff were busy preparing the oval, while Alan Langer was showing how he plans to fleece the French, a side which did record an overdue win against Western Division on Sunday.
Spin around here, not like this.
The Australians then continued the Goodwill Tour with clinics for over 2,000 kids in Forbes, Peak Hill and Parkes. Today's coaching clinic certainly showed that the whole exercise is going to be a success. Many of these kids travelled over 100 kilometres just to get close to their heroes. The players were swamped for autographs. Test debutant Laurie Daly, clearly the pin-up of Parkes.
You know, I enjoy doing it. I know what it was like when I was a young fella from the bush and, you know, trying to see your heroes and that. So, you know, I think it was great for them.
Although hit by the flu and a spate of injuries, the Bullets are also taking time out for a 3-day coaching clinic in Brisbane. The response has been overwhelming, with 450 kids attending over the past 2 days, and today meant something special to one young fan. Although nursing an ankle injury, Derek Rucker gave up his morning to pass on some tips to eager young fans. But 16-year-old Aaron Hazel got special attention. Aaron has Down syndrome, but that doesn't stop him being an avid Bullets fan, and after some patient coaching from his hero, making his first basket.
It's a way for us to pay back something to the kids and for their support of us, and so it's a good thing overall.
Boomers captain Phil Smythe will be out to avenge a pre-season beating from Rucker when they clash on Saturday in Canberra.
So I think he'll be pretty fired up for the contest, but so will I, so it's going to be a tough game.
Former Bullet Emery Atkinson will be out to show the Brisbane big men who's boss, but Robert Sibley, who's in the best form of his career, has other ideas.
It'd be good to go down there and play against Emery again, because we haven't played against him in a while.
Although Loggins and Fox are also on the injured list, the Bullets are confident that this will be their lucky 13th win of the season.
They're desperate for a win, and we're just as desperate to stay where we are.
Don't miss our live coverage of the game at 8:30 on Saturday night, direct from Canberra. And that's all tonight in sport. Thanks, Kat.
That was nice. Thank you, Peter. On to finance news now, and the All Ordinaries Index closed marginally higher. Gold is up $3.40, and the Aussie dollar also gained against the US dollar. Stay with us, weather details coming up.
He will witness their atrocities. They will follow him home.
Just do it.
Run. Harrison Ford in Witness, Sunday on 7.
Imagine traveling the Orient Express, or visiting the Great Pyramids,
or Africa on safari, or the Grand Canyon, or winning $50,000, or one of 2 magnificent Holden Apollo SLE sedans. These are some of the best ever prizes in the PAL Only the Best promotion. Plus there's Brampton Island Holidays, Sharp Electrical Products, Exelpet Leads, and of course, PAL. Look for details on special PAL labels.
Thank you, Australia. You've made us #1.
It's Australia's favourite breakfast. Weet-Bix is #1. From Aussie kids to grown-ups, it's loved by everyone. Aussie kids are Weet-Bix kids. Aussie kids are Weet-Bix kids. Aussie kids are Weet-Bix kids. Aussie kids are Weet-Bix kids.
Weet-Bix from Sanitarium. Low in fats, virtually no sugar, low in salt, packed with complex carbohydrates and dietary fibre. No wonder Weet-Bix is Australia's favourite breakfast.
Weet-Bix whole wheat goodness, grown in the Aussie sun. Australia's favourite breakfast. Weet-Bix is #1.
The very best an oil can be, so join the winning team. Valvoline, tomorrow's oils today. You know what I mean. Tomorrow's oils today. Valvoline.
Why did Monet paint the same scene so often? With Discovering the Great Paintings, uncover the inspiration behind the great works of art. Starting with Monet, each fortnightly issue features a different artist. Bring art to life. Discovering the Great Paintings.
Tonight's weather is brought to you by Raby Bay, Queensland's most sought-after residential waterfront community.
Now the weather, and I hope you found a spot in the sun out of the wind today. If not, you've probably had a pretty rotten sort of a day. We were only 6 in the city overnight, which was all of 5 below the June average. Today, only climbed to 16. Just be thankful you haven't had a transfer to Toowoomba. Their top today was a sizzling 9 degrees. The official weather forecast for tomorrow is fine and clear, with the cold winds freshening again in the morning. 8 to 18 in the city, down to 6 in the western suburbs and Ipswich. Fine and clear on the coasts, those westerlies picking up in the morning, temperatures 8 to 18. Fine conditions to stay, cool on Thursday but getting warmer on Friday. Coastal, Fraser Island to Coolangatta, southwest to southerly winds at 15 knots, freshening to 20 in the morning, and the seas rising to 2 metres. On Moreton Bay, west to southwesters, freshening to 20 knots in the morning, seas to rise to 1.7 metres in the central and eastern bay. Why? Well, on today's surface chart, that huge high way over in the west is sending in the cold winds. They'll freshen because that front lying across Victoria will pass through here tomorrow. And then tomorrow's chart shows yet another one replacing it, though it may not extend as far north as here. Clearly, still in charge is that big high, so winds will generally stay out of the west and they'll be cold. The latest colour satellite shot, you can see the cloud with the cold front. That's it arcing across Victoria. That speckled cloud behind it, that means cold weather. Around the state will be fine down the coast, with single figures tonight from Townsville south. A possible shower and shivering in Toowoomba. Around Australia, and the Antarctic blast is hitting the south. Look at those maximums. Darwin would seem to be about the only place to be tomorrow, 30.
So wrap up. And don't forget that tomorrow night we draw the winner of the Dixon Dream Home competition. I hope we'll see you then.
Certainly on behalf of the team, thanks for watching tonight. Until tomorrow, good night.
Good night.
If you're really looking for a car, don't fool around with the others. Get the news straight at the Toyota end of financial year stock take clearance. Toyota's whole range has been reduced. Take a look at Corolla from only $13,299, or grab a super deal on all the Camrys. The Toyota end of financial year stock take clearance ends June 30. So don't fool around.
A desperate race to save a young girl from the streets.
He's 15 years old, made a kid.
It's every parent's nightmare come true. A country practice, 7:30 tonight.
You know we belong together. You and I forever and ever. No matter where you are.
Look, Grant needed his car, so...
So?
Well, I phoned all around town, nobody's got any spare chicken wire. I'll go to Yabby Creek as soon as the shop's open in the morning.
What are you going to do with them until then?
Well...
Oh, no, no way. Those chooks are not staying in the house.
You have registered a blood alcohol concentration in excess of 0.05. I want you to accompany me to the police station.
What are you talking about?
What I'm talking about, Mr. Stewart, is driving under the influence. You are under arrest.
Still can't believe I was over the flaming limit. I mean, I was only drinking light beer. Flaming lollywood. What is it? 2.2, 2.4% alcohol?
No, it's still alcohol, Alf.
Yeah, I know, but not enough to get you drunk.
What sort of light grog was it, anyway?
What does it matter? Light's light, isn't it?
3.2.
You're kidding. Give me a look at that. Oh, that's lovely, that is, eh? Huh, it's almost full strength. I mean, these people ought to make it very clear on the label. Flaming light beer, my foot. I ought to sue these blokes. I could lose my licence over this.
There's nothing you can do about it now. I cannot get over Jane. She was so full on.
Yeah, she's pretty keen on the rule book, isn't she? Anyway, mate, I'm going to go and do those last few deliveries. I'll see you later.
You can't.
What do you mean? Couldn't still be over the limit. It's been a couple of hours.
You want to risk it? Look, give us the keys. I'll zip down and grab your car for you.
Mate, you've done so much already.
Alf, take me 20 minutes. See ya.
Thanks, mate.
What's the actual problem? I mean, there are plenty vacant.
You're not putting chooks in one of the caravans. Can you imagine the mess?
Well, I'll clean it up tomorrow.
Clean it. It'll have to be fumigated.
Oh, it won't be that bad.
It will be appalling. The answer is no. I'm sure there's some health department rule.